It is time. This is the Practice of Pastry. We are the POPers. We are a baking club that you don't have to join, you just have to show up. It's free. Anybody's welcome. And I am Kathleen. I am a certified executive pastry chef who teaches on TikTok. And every Wednesday I do a recipe that my viewers choose. And last week you guys chose the Bohemian Poppy Seed Cake. And this is a really special, near and dear to my heart recipe. And I will be talking about it and giving a little bit of a lecture. And then I'm gonna bake it. And I'm gonna make the filling and make the frosting. And they're all a little bit old school. So we're gonna be using different thickeners like cornstarch and flour. And it's a cake that's sort of a modified sponge cake. So there's no egg yolk in it, but we are gonna whip egg whites and fold it into the batter. It's very rich, lovely, delicious cake. The practice of pastry is basically a concept where every time that you work in the kitchen, you work to the best of your ability and you build practices so that you make fewer mistakes, you learn while you go, you have and create less anxiety, and you have more ease in the kitchen. And I believe a lot of what I teach, it translates to the rest of your life. So like whatever you learn and apply in the kitchen gives you ease elsewhere. Organization, a little bit of pre-planning, and just really approaching everything with reverence and respect. That's what we try to do with our ingredients and our recipes. I'm gonna do my fit check right away, get my hair pulled back, and then we're gonna hit the recipe. That way I can keep moving forward with talking about my ingredients. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go pull my hair back, and then we're going to do a quick fit check and get started in this kitchen. All right, I'm gonna pull my hair back, and then we're gonna get ready here. Take 2 seconds. Why is it so warm? Okay, I'm gonna grab my apron and do a fit check. When I work in the kitchen, I'm very boring, okay? I just did my laundry concoction because it was time for all my towels to get washed. And I wash all my aprons at the same time. So when I work in the kitchen, I like to signify that I work clean and that I'm serious. And I don't goof around in the kitchen, so it's kind of my place to chill and relax. So I lean into things like no nail polish, no jewelry, hair pulled back, safe clothes that aren't gonna get caught on anything, and then I wear clogs in the kitchen. And I am going to clean off my space here, and then we're gonna talk. Well, why don't we talk real quick, and then I'll wash my hands. This is the story of the Bohemian Poppy Seed Cake. This is the Bohemian Poppy Seed Cake original article. Okay, my husband Dave, he pulled this out of the newspaper. I didn't cut this, he cut this out from the Madison, Wisconsin State Journal in 1993. I wasn't even a baker yet. I think I just got my KitchenAid stand-up mixer. And he said, I'm really interested in this cake. And it's a poppy seed cake with a filling and a frosting. And the filling is made with a thickened cornstarch, and the frosting is thickened flour. It's that old school. This one's kind of in between an American buttercream and an ermine frosting. But I didn't even know how to do it, and it's actually kind of technical. There's a strong German, Czechoslovakian, Russo-Carpathian influx that kind of goes up into Wisconsin. So anything with poppy seeds is very popular there, and you can see how when people came over from different countries, they brought their food traditions with them, and how they stick and how they trickle down, and sometimes we do them, we don't even know why. So this is the original recipe, and it was from 1977, and this guy won a contest for their cookbook, and it was the most requested or most well-loved of all these recipes. And then in 1993 they reposted it, and it became a family heirloom for my family because then Dave wanted it for his birthday every year. So what I do is I go through this recipe. I copied it, I printed it out. I go through the recipe and I diagram it out. And I say like how to make, this is how when I read through a recipe, I write it out. So this is like, you have to soak this overnight. These are the poppy seeds, the milk and the vanilla. And then you do this and you do this and you do that. And because there's a lot of cooling and resting in this particular recipe takes a lot of patience. You have to read ahead, sort of plan that you're going to do some things in advance. It's not something you're going to just start this morning. You have to think about it. So that's something to know. But when I haven't read the article in years, but I read the whole article, and one person after another basically said that the reason they like it and why it's special is because it takes special consideration and you have to plan. It's almost like that little additional sticking point shows that you really love somebody and you're willing to make it for. And I always said this is fussy, but Dave loves it so much, and it's old school. Don't expect overly sweet. Expect a sweetness tempered by a very creamy filling, a nice frosting that's not too sweet, but very light, and then this really light and yet really full and dense of poppy seed cake that you get a little crunch in the poppy seed. So it's a really nice, lovely cake. And then once I do this and I diagram it out, I then go and I go through my baker's appendix and I transfer all of the amounts of the recipe into grams. Once I get these transferred, I then go to the formulator and I put in those amounts right here. And this is a 100% recipe and it makes 2 8-inch rounds. But it also tells me baker's percentage using all-purpose flour as the 100%. So everything I know about this recipe is based off of the flour, and the fact that this cake has 28% poppy seeds is really good. If any of you have done my lemon poppy seed cake, that cake's around 7% poppy seeds, so it's just lighter, it's a tea cake, it's really sweet, it's kind of nice, gives you a little bit of poppy seed. The poppy seed cake from Beans and Barley, which is also on my link tree, has like 60% poppy seeds. It's really poppy seed heavy. So these numbers in percentages tell you what you need to know, and it's a language that we are learning to speak to one another. If you want to follow along with me right now, on my link tree is the poppy seed cake, the filling, and the frosting recipe. These are all in grams. That's how I work, even though the original recipe is in cups and spoons. I translated those. I also, if you want to go to Substack, these are my notes for this specific recipe. These notes have desired outcome, kind of what concepts we're using, the technique and ingredient breakdown, and then in the end, what sort of is the synergy of this recipe. So that's on my Substack. You are learning in real time exactly how I taught professional seeking, home bakers, and everybody. And I want everyone to remember, people think I'm like sciencey and mathy. I am not good at science or math, but what I am good at is nutshelling what you need to know about a recipe. And as you begin to build a practice and some of this intuition, you will begin to understand when you look at a recipe, you'll know. My goal is not to be around all the time to answer your questions. My goal is so that you are all in a position to be able to read a recipe, evaluate it yourself, convert it, look at it, and make a determination if you even want to put your time and money into it, and then go from there. So it's like I'm giving you training wheels, and then at some point you're going to take the training wheels off. So it's very exciting. I get very excited about baking. I love baking, and I like it from this standpoint. A lot of people love baking because they have people in their lives that they love and they want to share it with. When I was recipe developing in class, teaching students how to recipe develop, they had to do a final project. Some would pick a gluten-free, some sugar-free or low sugar. And I would always ask why. And it always came down to, I have a grandmother who's diabetic and can't have sugar, so I want to make her something. She hasn't had a sugar cookie in years. I have, a family, we're all celiacs, and we would love to be able to have a cake or something really yummy. So it's really wonderful to be able to share all this with everybody. I'm going to be cleaning my countertop and getting going. It's going to move. It's going to be a fast-moving train. Everything you are going to see is exactly how I would lecture or demo in person, other than I wish I could take questions like out loud and just easily. And I wish you could walk by and peek your head into the bowl. But we're going to try our best and do it in a way that lends to the teaching. And what I want you to be thinking about constantly is why. What connections can you make? How is this like other things that you've done? And how is it different from other things that you've made? And how is what I'm saying something interesting and explaining issues, problems, or successes you've had in the kitchen? If I can reach 30 people a semester and really start to change lives and get people really launched into their careers and into a better practice, why not be able to do it for a lot more people? And now we're at like 158,000. It's just insane. First, I'm going to clean up and wash my hands. So this is where I work. It's a rented kitchen. All right, so I'm going to wash my hands, and I'm going to sanitize my countertop, and then we are going to get started. I was scaling eggs earlier, and they are messy, and I want to make sure that I don't cross-contaminate. But I work out of a home kitchen, so anything that I'm using should be adaptable to what you have in your home. And I know that this is international, So one of the reasons I talk about ingredients the way that I do is because I want you to understand them, so that if you need to find an ingredient and it's not named the same thing as what I call it, or you don't have the same brands, that you are still able to get what you need. Here's where we're going to start, and this is going to be a little out of order, but in order for me to use the oven and get the cake in, I am going to start with the nuts. This is for the filling. This recipe does not say that you have to toast the nuts. I personally like to give them, to cut them into quarters and then just toast them till they have color. They aren't going to get baked anymore in a cake. They're going in the filling, and I don't want them raw. I also think about the nuts in terms of how they feel on the tooth. These are a very big nut. Do you see how they have a line down the middle? This is how hazelnuts are too. That's like, you can have this. This will go straight in half. Even when you just give it light pressure, it breaks right down the middle. So I'm going to cut these in half. And if you want to chop your nuts, however you can, I tend to like to keep I call it shrapnel. I like to keep the shrapnel down. I've been enjoying using my new knife that my friend Jane helped me get from Japan. It's labeled on the date that it was made. So you can just chop these and end up with a lot of shrapnel, a lot of shards, and that's fine. I just like to have as little as possible. Don't ask me why, it's just part of my... So I'm going to go through and chop these, and then I'm going to put them on this tray. Let me get this done really fast. Basically, when you're chopping things, what you want to think about is how they're going to be on the tooth. If they're not going to be dried out anymore, or if they're going to go in between two cake layers, and all of a sudden you have this huge piece of nut in your mouth and it's raw and it's just not delicious and it's huge, I don't know. I don't think that's very nice on the tooth. So I like to think about what is my final desired texture. So sometimes I'm kind of tedious with this because I want them to be really nice. So you could go smaller. And you could omit the nuts completely. You can use raw nuts. You could use a nut that's been salted if you want. It's going into a creamy filling. Not a pastry cream, but kind of that genre. So you could use pecans, walnuts, pistachio, whatever you like. A macadamia nut is so special and such a nice flavor. I think it's buttery. That is why it goes well with this cake. I did toast these earlier, so I have what I need for our filling, so I'm not going to have to do this twice. So I'm going to put these onto the parchment, and then we're going to put these in the oven. I know that these probably are going to take close to 10 minutes, but I'm going to give them a 5-minute check because I want them to be just brown. And I want to show you what they look like after I did them. So I made them this dark. And as soon as I opened them, they became fragrant. And they're very crunchy. This is very important. If you toast them like this, do not put them back in a container until they are 100% cool. They will steam and reabsorb that moisture and be mushy. So right now they're toasty and they're dry. So that is going in the filling. And I've got a timer on. I have a timer on. We're gonna start with the poppy seed cake, and I'm gonna set up for that. This cake is so fabulous. It has a whipped egg white and a creamed butter and sugar. I'm gonna get the ingredients. So knowing that, I plan ahead. I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna verify that my scalings are correct. So I have in this mixture, and I have the lid, I have the 3 ingredients that went in here. This is my vanilla, my milk, and my poppy seed, and these are all room temperature. I pulled these out a couple hours ago. So a couple things are going on. In Milwaukee, at the Spice House, they have an old-fashioned poppy seed grinder. This very gently rolls and cracks the poppy seeds so that when you do bake with them, they're more absorbent and they have a nice chew to them. But I don't have one of those. And if you're making any poppy seed cake, I don't care if it's a snack cake or muffins, it's kind of a cool thing to take the dairy, whether it's milk, sour cream, yogurt, or whatever, and soak your poppy seeds the night before. If you don't, these are absorbent. They're going to go in your cake and possibly pull moisture from other ingredients. And this way you're pre-hydrating them so they leave the other ingredients alone. And when you add vanilla, they kind of infuse that vanilla at a cellular level, so you are really being very conscientious of layering in flavor. little bits at a time. It's not just top note, it's in the poppy seed at this point. So this is room temp, and those numbers are all correct. And then I have butter, which is soft. It's been at room temp. Here's the sucrose at 300 grams. It's 120%. And what that means is if the flour is 100%, this is 120% of this. So that's a lot of sugar. And then I'm going to put my dries over here. I have 250 grams of AP flour, which makes this a very accessible cake. It's going to be tender, but there's not a chew to it, but it's not delicate. It's got a heft. It's a very lovely cake. Let me show you the one I made today. Just so you know where we're headed. Would you look? Can you see the poppy seeds? It's probably glary. Can you see the poppy seeds? There's so many. So lovely. So then I have baking powder is the only leavener. That is 10 grams, and I have 3 grams of sea salt, and then I have my egg whites. It's very important that your egg whites are room temperature because you will not get a nice meringue without those being warm, because the protein strands, if you think of them like your muscles, are stretchier or more capable of turning into a meringue if they're not all tight, if they're nice and loose. They stretch out, something that can trap air, and that's how we're going to get our meringue, because this meringue doesn't have cream of tartar or salt or acids to bring it. It's no sugar. It's just simply whip the eggs and then fold them into the batter, and you'll see how we do that. So I'm going to take this off of my tray. This is my tammy. Onto here goes my dries, 3 dries, but while I'm going to start this, let's go check on our nuts. This is only 5 minutes in. So a couple of them are getting brown. So what I'm going to do is take my, here we go. I'm just going to shake this real quick. So I'm going to give these 4 minutes. So I want to get the sugar and the butter going, and then I'm going to sift the dry. So I know the order in which this is great. So I'm going to pull off these labels, and I'm not going to get rid of them. I'm going to put them over here. I want to make sure that everything's right. And if it's not, I mean, I promise you, if you're having problems in the kitchen, I can't tell you how many times it's been scaling. So many times. So if you can go back and backtrack and see, possibly with 3 recipes going into 1 cake, you possibly got the sucrose from the filling. Possibly. Accidentally. So that's why we're going to be careful. So I'm going to put the fat or the butter into here. So we have fat and sugar, fat and sweeteners. That's what the creaming method is. Our fat, in this case, is butter. It's unsalted. I'm using Plugra, not an American. It's going to have a little more fat and a little less water. And I'm going to get it started on the paddle on low. You never want to dump everything in here. Even if you think, what's the problem with adding the sucrose to the butter? Let's just get it going. You need everything to be verified. It gives me, see, I can even hear it rubbing. It gives me an opportunity to verify everything's good, there are no lumps, okay? Theoretically, let's say it was winter and there's lumps. I need to take care of that before I go adding these. And quite frankly, my sucrose has lumps. It's summer, it's hygroscopic. It's pulling all of the moisture, making it, you know, lumpy. So I'm gonna turn this up just a notch, and I'm going to put 1/3 of the sugar in. And then I'm gonna put another 1/3. And you don't have to do this, you can dump it all in. But I like to let all of the ingredients get to know each other, and time, temperature, and moisture is really important in this recipe because almost all of these are emulsions. You've got the egg whites are turning into an emulsion, this creaming method is an emulsion, and if you don't take your time and verify at each stage that you're doing the most, you're not going slowly and with intention. So we want to be baking with intention. I like to keep one of my things to keep my spatula off of the counter. I have this on low, and there's no rush to do anything because it's fine. I'm not over aerating it. I'm not doing anything crazy. In the butter lives all the things that live in dairy, things that taste yummy, solids like the proteins and the sugars that live in butter, and then you have the fat, and then you have water. The water is beginning to dissolve the sucrose, but sucrose is table sugar. That size of sugar grain is going to cut little holes in the fat, whether I'm using shortening or butter. and it's going to cut little holes, and those holes are going to hold the CO2, the leavener, later. That's what the baking powder is for. But you don't build air cells anywhere other than in the bowl. Let me check the nuts. I can smell them. That's what grabbed my attention. Ah, yes. All right. These are fine. However, I want to tell you, they're dark. So what I want to do is take these off of the pan so that they do not continue to bake. If they were lighter, I would leave them and let them have a little carryover baking, but I don't want to because they're plenty dark. Hot, hot, hot. So they're plenty dark, so I need to get them off that tray so there's no carryover. I don't want them getting darker. They're plenty dark. All right, so I'm going to show you what this looks like right now, and our goal is not to get this huge. So now I want to scrape it, and I'm really learning about what's going on in here, which is I can feel the grains of sugar. I can hear them. I can see that it's starting to come together, and if I had cold butter, this might not be emulsifying so nicely. So I'm not going to turn it up. We like air cells, but we don't want to be massively creamed. And I'm going to put my flour, baking powder, and salt, sea salt, into my tammy, and I'm going to sift it. When you sift, you're doing two things. One, you're aerating it a little bit, and two, you are making more cohesive your ingredients. They're combined a little more than they were. And all of these little things, taking your time adding the ingredients, looking at them, knowing that there were lumps in the sucrose, knowing that I had some lumps in the baking powder, all of these things let me know that I'm ready to move to the next step. What we're going to be doing is adding dry, wet, ending with the dry, and then we're going to fold in the egg white. So I need to whip the egg white. So right now, the wet of the moisture in here and the moisture in here is not combined with the flour, so there's no gluten activated. When you look at flour, it's potential. This is potentially activated by gluten. It needs moisture. So right now it's just inert. So I'm not going to mix the batter with the baking powder and all the moisture and then let it sit. I'm going to take my butter, move it to the side, whip the egg whites, and then go back to finishing the creaming method and then fold in the whites to there. So that's the process, and now you're going to see me do it and see how it makes sense. So this is one of those things where you plan it out, you diagram it out, and you won't make a mistake if you've read the recipe all the way through and you thought about it. You'll be prepared. And the great thing is I made this earlier today, so I love it because it really is in my head. All right, so here, I can already see that a lot of the grains of sugar are a little smaller and a little dissolved. It's aerated but not crazy, and it's cohesive. So remember, the word of tonight I think is emulsification, because everything needs to be emulsified. Now, if you want, you can take white vinegar and clean your utensils and your bowl. I'm not going to, because this is not the kind of whipped egg white that a meringue that really needs to stay strong because of all the things that it has to do. In a pavlova, it has to be transferred to a tray. It has to be shaped. It has to be baked. This just needs to last on the countertop for a few minutes, and then I fold it into all the other things. It's going to take a second, so I'm going to pull out my ingredients because I have them all here in front of me, but I'm not going to throw away my tape. I'm going to keep them, just in case I have to go digging through the garbage to verify what's going on. And at this point, we have our egg whites on medium. I'm going to show them to you. I don't want you to go any faster than that. If you're in a hurry and you're whipping your egg whites on high, you're just building unstable bubbles. And what that means is when you go medium or low and slow, you build a lot of bubbles, air bubbles, that are all the same size. So if one pops, it's not a big deal. But if you have some that are big and some that are little, and that's what happens, irregularity happens when you go too fast, and then a big one pops, then you have it break down. So an emulsion is when things go together that don't normally like each other and stay together. In our egg white, we have water and these egg proteins. When you stretch and whip them and add air, that meringue or that egg foam is an emulsion. But if you leave it in the bowl and walk away and you see the water weep out, that's because it's not a strong emulsion. A strong emulsion is when you add sugar to it. That's going to help stabilize it. Stabilization is nothing more than taking that moisture and locking it in. So when someone says anything's stabilized, because that's such a thrown around term, that means when you look at it, the water's not weeping out of it. If you make a pastry cream and water weeps out of it, it's not a stabilized emulsion. So we want that water to be in there and stay in as well as it can. But because this is an easy going, we're just going to be chill, we're not going to worry, it doesn't have to be stiff. Stiff meringues are dried out. They've gone all the way, stretched, they can't do anymore. So we want a meringue that's medium to stiff heat, so that when it goes in the oven, it can still expand. You don't go all the way, just like when you're proofing bread, you don't go all the way, you go to the edge. So we're going to take this to the edge, everything's going to get folded together, and it's going to go in the oven, and it's going to grow and make a beautiful tender cake. So let me show you what this looks like right now. So it's a foam, but it's very liquidy. And when I lift it up, it's still, so you can see that there's foam. You see the air, look at that. That's what it's doing. It's trapping air, but those proteins need to get a little bit stretchier. They need to grab on a little bit more. They need a little more time. They're nice and warm, which is good. So I'm going to be putting these in. These are my 8-inch pans. I like an 8-inch pan with a nice 3-inch side. And I'm going to spray them with my Pam Baker Spray, but I'm not ready to yet. And then I use leftover scraps that fit. So all you need is something that helps you release the middle. It doesn't need to go all the way to the edges. But I don't like when people put it in and it's smushed or off to the side or so big that you want, and it's very important when you pull a cake out, the integrity of the edge is maintained. That's what you don't want a parchment, then you have a dink, because when we frost it, then we have to fill in that mistake. So this is a perfect edge, it bakes beautifully, so we want our parchment to not interfere and have a nice clear margin. See, that doesn't touch any of the edges. So I'll spray those when we get ready. Let's check our meringue. The thing about doing a meringue like this is, don't walk away. This is one of those things you need to, so you can see that it's getting a little thicker, but the way you check a meringue is not this way, okay? The way you check a meringue is to flip it over. That is medium, and because I can already see that it's not super strong, I'm gonna take it another minute or so. That way, in the time that it takes me to build the rest of the cake, this won't fall apart as much. Now, even if it starts to weep the moisture out while I'm putting the flour and the milk and everything together, that egg, it'll still be fine. That egg is going to go into the oven, and because egg whites are made up of mostly water and structure building proteins, as those waters steam, it's going to fill up and build this really nice cake structure that wouldn't happen if the moisture weren't there. So it's a good thing to have the moisture. It's okay that it's not all beaten and perfect. And if you take this meringue all the way to where it doesn't weep, you've dried it out. It doesn't need to cover the entire bottom. It just needs to cover the part that's hard to get out. Because when you flip this cake out, it's not the edges that stick. It's always the bottom middle, right? So this just gives you a release. And you'll watch me take it out of the pan. You'll see. So let's see what we have here. So a weak meringue has nothing in it. It has no acids, has no sugars, nothing. It's just, but this is stiff now. Now if I keep going, it's going to get grainy. And once it gets grainy, it's overdone. So we're going to just put this off to the side now. This is our meringue for later. I need to work very quickly. This needs to go on here, and it's going to go dry first. And I want you to think about, why am I adding dry first? And you're going to see how quickly I work. Once I add the flour, and then especially the milk, you have to keep it moving because it's not bread. We don't want it chewy like a good bread that you have to pull out of your mouth. You want it to stay tender, which means we don't want to overwork the gluten. Right now it's just fat and sugar. Nothing's happening. Look at this. It's not going to hurt the gluten, right? So here I go. I have it on low, and I'm going to do 1/3 of the flour. And the first third is bigger than any of the others. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this. And then I'm going to add the next one. And I can stop the machine if I need to, and I will because I need to scrape. Now I'm going to stop right now and show you what's going on in here, and then I'm going to scrape and then add the moist. There is a point where you don't want to keep mixing until you've given it a bit of a scrape. And just keeping adding and thinking that you're moving quickly, because at some point these will not go together. You will lose the cohesiveness because we are building an emulsion. And if I just keep adding, it will ruin it. So I'm going to take my paddle, go around, scrape the edges, scrape the bottom, bang off a little bit on my paddle, put it back on here. And then with it on low, the moisture's hydrating, it's go time, but it's not moving, so I'm not developing gluten, which is good. So when I start it, I'm going to pour in this room temperature vanilla and milk and poppy seeds, and I'm going to stop it. And I am going to scrape all of this into here. And these poppy seeds have been sitting in the refrigerator since last night, and then I pulled them out to get them room temperature. So when you're building the emulsion, you need to make sure that at this point, all of your ingredients are the same temperature and they're warm so that they like each other. If you have cold milk and you have, warm butter, you are going to get, okay, they're not going to like each other. So I'm just going to help this along, because when you just fold a little bit and kind of mix it together like this, you're helping a lot and it's very gentle. So you're not developing the gluten. So you don't have to rely all on one thing or the other. You need to think about and sort of react to what's going on in the bowl. Because whatever's going on in the bowl, only you can see it. And then I'm going to add the last flour. And then this goes back on a tray and I can reuse it. So I'm going to transfer this to another bowl so I can fold in the egg whites. I'm going to give it just one more second on the paddle because I see a little bit of butter. And I'll show you while I turn it on. And then this is, I just bang it like that, just to make sure it's all together. And then I'm going to transfer it to a different bowl to fold in my eggs. And meanwhile, I'm going to get my pans ready. I'm going to do a few things. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to need this again, but I'm going to move it out of the way. This is my bowl that I'll be folding into. You want wider than it is tall for folding. And I'm going to take these pans and get them ready. And you really just want just to pulse. These cakes have a lot of butter in them, and butter is a natural releasing agent. You shouldn't really have a lot of things sticking. There you go. So these are going to be ready to go. If you do that too far in advance, you end up with a little bit of, again, the emulsion, the flour and the grease separating. So here's my bowl. Here is my meringue. And you can tell, see that? You can see a little liquid. It's sliding around. That tells me that it's separated, which is fine. It's good. So I'm going to take my paddle and clean it up. I like to keep all of my bowls clean. Pick one spot where you're going to do your pull off and just use that for your spatula. Anyone should be able to walk up to your bowl and pick it up or pick up your tools and not get batter on their hands or a mess. It's kind of a tip off if you're working clean. So I'm going to take this. I'll show you what it looks like. It's a beautiful batter. It's not broken, okay? There's no broken parts. It's smooth. You see, got aerated parts. It's nice and smooth. This is sort of the texture that it is. I'm going to put this all in here. So now I'm going to be adding whipped egg whites. I mean, there couldn't be two things that are more different. This is, look how thick it is. It's thick. It's lovely. Absolutely beautiful. And in order to not deflate my egg whites, I'm going to use proper folding technique. And believe it or not, I'm gonna put these in here in thirds. So I'm going to take just the white part, not the liquid, about a third, and I'm going to cut, lift, and turn the bowl. I am not stirring, and I'm not going back over and under. You turn and lift and keep it moving. And I've done a bunch of videos if you are interested, and there will still be streaks at this point. That's okay. Streaks on the first and second edition are fine. It's the last one that you need to make sure they're all incorporated. And if they're not, you'll have a weak spot in your cake that might collapse in the oven, or when you cut into it, you'll see a gap. Now, if you didn't use ingredients that were the right temperature, you might see tunneling in your cake. You might see, tunneling are those when you cut into the top, there's a bunch of holes, or you cut into the side. Those just mean you've had either over mixing or temperature issues. So I am going to fold this in, and I don't want any streaks. I'm being as gentle as I can be because I do have baking powder, and I did make air cells on the paddle during the creaming method, but my leavener on top of the baking powder is my egg white. All right, so I can't really see any, but I know they're there, so I'm gonna go around and clean up my bowl, and then I'm going to look closely and say, yep, I think the bottom's good, everything's good, and then I'll get my pans. And then if you are in a kitchen where you want to weigh these and you know what your batter weighs, definitely weigh these so they're the same. But because these are just for fun, I'm not selling them, I'm not gonna weigh them. But you wanna pick up the bowl in a way that you can keep it moving. And I usually count. I don't really go as much by sight as I do by like knowing how much and how long it goes in, and practice definitely helps. And then you kind of look and get it as good as you can. Today, they both baked at exactly the same time and they look identical. That's something that comes with practice. So if you are somebody who wants to weigh out your cakes, I just encourage you to do it quickly, keep it moving, and don't dawdle, and don't move the cake batter back and forth and all over the place and do a million things with it. Don't like weigh it and scoop it and smush it and spread it, because you'll be toughening it up. You really don't want to push your cakes up against the side, because if it sticks on the side, that part is going to burn and then the cake is going to drop, and those are going to be overdone. So what you want to do is take your spatula and almost like vibrate it, and just until it gets to the edge. I'm not pushing it, it's kind of like falling into place. And that is how you want to do it. Take another spatula and clean this guy up. So it's really like quick. You don't have to have it perfect. It will flatten out in the heat in the oven. And there we go. Tastes like a delicious batter. All right, I'm going to take it over here and put it in a 350-degree oven. And I'm going to put it at 20 minutes. It took 35 minutes today, so we should be around that same time, but you never know. Sometimes ovens are weird. It's a propane oven, so it could be a little hotter or a little cooler than it was earlier today. Let me clean up my countertop here, because we are now going to make the filling and the frosting. And we're doing a Bohemian Poppy Seed Cake. Right now, I am starting with the Bohemian Poppy Seed Cake filling, and I'm gonna get the ingredients and get my workspace set up. So we have sucrose, egg yolk at 80 grams, cornstarch at 16. I'm gonna mix that with the sucrose. Milk, quite a bit of milk. We have milk room temperature, salt for flavor, and then I am going to put the vanilla in after the cooking. So I'm done with my tray. I'm gonna grab my IKEA induction burner and my tools. An induction burner needs pans that are induction ready. This is a magnet. If the magnet does not stick, you can't use the pan on an induction burner. If you want to use a double boiler, this is a technique where you have to go low and slow. I'm not going to use a double boiler because I can control the heat, but what I recommend is that you know your heat source, whether it's a flame, electric, or this induction burner, and it needs to be low. And you need to keep your spatula moving so you don't cook everything. But if you want to use a bain-marie or a water bath, make sure to have a dry towel nearby, so when you pull that top pan off and it has all the condensation, you can put a towel under it and clean it up so that condensation does not get back into your filling. There are a couple ways we could do this, but I'm going to do sort of a straight method. And the risk is that you scramble the eggs. We are going to take the sucrose and the cornstarch and mix them together because cornstarch likes to lump. So if you mix it in with the sugar, with the sucrose, then you help prevent lumps from the start. I'm going to get a larger deli cup and I'm going to put the sucrose in there. And you could put it in a bigger deli cup and then shake it, but I'm just going to do it this way. And this is a little bit left in here, but that's static electricity. So then I'm going to stir it until there are no lumps. I just want the cornstarch to be integrated into the sucrose. Now cornstarch is a nice thickener. It's going to give us a really glossy filling. It's got a neutral flavor, but it's important that we cook it for 30 seconds to a minute at a boil. If you don't do that, you won't get gelling properties. You won't get it to gelatinize. And we need it to gelatinize so it stays thick. We don't want to put this inside of our cake and then have it weep water. That would be terrible. So you need to practice this method. I'm going to do a direct method. This is a heat-proof spatula. So for sure, we want to add the milk to the pan first. You never want to put your dry ingredients on the bottom of a pan because then you might get something sticking. You might get the sugar to stick. So if you do it this way, then you're sort of ensuring that the moisture is going to help dissolve it before you get a hot spot. So we're going to do that, and then the salt goes in. I'm going to stir the sugar and the cornstarch into the cold milk, and sugar helps sort of lower the coagulation rate of the yolks, the cooking temperature. So that helps. It's almost like an insurance policy so that, and I don't even have the heat on yet. It's still, and my milk's not cold, it's room temperature. But I'm gonna whisk in the sugars, the cornstarch, and the yolk before I even turn on the heat. And I'm not aerating it. My whisk stays on the bottom of the pan. And this is a heavy bottom stainless steel pan, so I should get good results from it. So our egg yolk is not like the egg white. It's fat, it's got natural lecithin. And lecithin is a natural emulsifier. And emulsifiers have these fancy little molecules that grab onto two different things that don't like each other, water and fat. And when they do that, you get a liaison, somebody who's introducing these two things that don't typically like each other. All right, so let me get my lock off of here. And I'm gonna turn it down. I don't want this to be too hot. I wanna start low, get it going. And this is another thing that you do not wanna walk away from. It'll end up cooking on the bottom. You'll get scrambled egg, and we do not want that. So I'm going to clean off my spatula, get rid of the whisk. You can use glass, but you need something that you can put in that's hot. So I'm going to be taking this spatula, has a straight edge and a round edge. This spatula helps me get into the corners of the pan because where your stuff's gonna cook and where heat's gonna hide is right in here. So that might end up cooking faster than other spots. And then I want to use the top part of the spatula to scrape the bottom of the pan. So I'm doing figure eights and then around the whole thing and then a figure eight. So my job is to just, you can almost close your eyes and you want to feel and keep track and keep it moving. And if it starts to steam, that's okay, but we need to slowly bring the temperature up, very slowly. We have to give everybody time to adjust. If you shock the eggs, they're gonna cook and get hard. If you go too far and you scorch it, you have to throw it away. If you go too far and there's a lot of egg bits that are cooked, it's going to taste eggy, but you can push it through a sieve. You can do that. You might want to let it dissipate for a day or two, but it might be eggy and you're like, it doesn't taste good, I don't like it. That's what happens when you cook this too fast. So you start out really slow, keep it moving, be very gentle, don't crank up the heat until it starts to come to a nice heat on its own, and you can see a little water starting to evaporate off the top. And then when we notice it getting up around 100, 145 degrees Fahrenheit and whatnot, we're going to then go ahead and turn it up a little bit. But as it thickens, I'm gonna probably pull it off the heat a little bit and put it back. Pull it off, put it back. Because we are in control of the temperature. We're in control of the cook. It's not in control of us. So we don't have to be afraid. And if it starts to get all stuck to the bottom, take it off the heat. I have this trivet nearby, so I can just put it right on here if I need to slow the cooking down. You know, because sometimes when you turn the heat down, it doesn't slow the cooking. So you might need to take it off completely. If you want to use a pastry thermometer, you can. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing for the next 5 to 7 minutes. I like these kinds of jobs in the kitchen because it gave you a moment to just relax for 2 seconds. We're going to be doing a very similar thing. This is the filling, but we're going to be doing a very similar thing with the frosting. And then we'll use the mixer one more time. We're going to put a cake together and we're going to get to taste it. So I can kind of feel a little bit, and I can start to see a little bit of steam. Can you guys start to see a little steam? So I'm going to turn it down just 1 notch and keep looking at it. It's very liquidy, but at some point it'll become a little more elastic and a little bit thicker. And then when I'm ready to kind of get toward the end, I'm going to let it boil while stirring it 30 seconds to a minute, and we're going to be done. And then I'm going to pour it in here. And this already is going to taste wonderful. But if you're like, oh, I didn't like it because it was eggy, it was probably because you cooked it too fast. All right, so it is thickening. I want it to come down just a little bit. And there's moisture leaving, right? So when you're thickening something, not only is it absorbing the moisture in the flour or in the cornstarch, but it's also evaporating moisture. So there's less moisture, and that's what you're looking for. All right. If you cook this too fast and too hard, you will get a greasiness. You won't get a nice emulsion. You will push things out of balance, and they won't actually be connected at a nice level. All right, so it's starting to boil a little bit. There are little bubbles. I'm going to keep it moving and keep an eye on it. And if it's bubbling too much, I'm going to pull it off. So you're in control. And this can freak people out, but it's starting to stick to the spatula. But if you go not long enough, it will separate once it cools. And also, if it's not firm enough and you haven't done what you need to do, it will fall apart. So we have one opportunity to get it right. So this is where doing this more than one time, practicing and getting familiar with the concepts really helps. All right, I'm going to turn it off. And there's something called nappe, and this is already thick, but if you want to know, and this really works well with an anglaise, if something's thick enough, if you run your finger through and it stays separated, you're good to go. All right. So I am going to put this right here. I'm going to move this. The recipe says that you can add the vanilla to the finished thing, like once it's cooled, but I am going to put it in now because I think the warmth helps it kind of, again, get in there at a cellular level, but it's not cooking anymore. So it's not a hard heat, it's just warm. And once I get this into this container, I'm going to put a plastic to touch, and it's going in the refrigerator. I've also made a label with the date on it so I don't lose track of it. All right, so I'm making sure that it's cohesive and it's good to go. And then I am going to pour it into here. And you know, really you're looking at the bottom of your pan to make sure you don't have anything scorched or brown parts. You want to see that you did a good job keeping the pan clean, and you want to get it out of there because it's still cooking. You know, this is so similar to a pastry cream or to even making, you know, pâte à choux. Like you're really trying to toggle that moisture line between not enough moisture removed and too much. So then I take my plastic to touch because you don't want a skin to form. So this is not plastic to touch. All that will do is collect condensation. So you want to take the back of your hand and you want to push it down to touch on all areas while it cools. And then I'm just going to put this lid on here. It's got the date from today. Filling and 7/23. And then I am going to do the next thing, which is our frosting, which is very similar. And I have 3 minutes left on the cake, and they look like they have quite a bit of time left. Woo! All right, so now we're going to do the next thing. And then the rest is all fun because it's like decorating and filling and stuff, which I could do all day. Let's get my burner back up here. It is a filling. It's not pastry cream, but it's very similar. It's the same method, and it is a filling for a Bohemian Poppy Seed Cake. It's creamy and vanilla and sweet, and it's thickened partially with the egg yolks, but also with cornstarch. Yeah, you put it in the fridge right away. And in fact, it is a little bit of a food safety hazard. So having it in a tall, narrow container is not gonna cool as quickly as if I had it in a shallow, wider one. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do for this Bohemian Poppy Seed Cake is the frosting. And this is really fun. And you know, we're gonna be cooking just the milk and the flour. It's kind of like a roux, except there's no fat in the cook. So the recipe is the white frosting, and we have 24 grams of all-purpose flour. It's not very much. Flour is not as strong of a thickener as cornstarch. Cornstarch is like twice as strong as AP flour, but it's a nice flour to use for the frosting because it creates a little bit of stability. And then I have milk, quite a bit of milk, 242 grams of milk. And I'm going to be creaming butter and sucrose on the paddle, on the mixer, and adding vanilla. And then this cool, thickened flour and butter mixture is going to go together, and we're going to have a nice buttercream. It's going to be so good. And my timer is about to go off. I want to show you guys what's going on in there, and then I'll get started with thickening the flour. It's not a roux, but it's kind of similar. So do we remember how long I put this in here for? 20. There it is. Take a look. They are very liquidy, but I'm seeing a lot of bubbles. I'm seeing bubbles. I'm seeing it lift up a little bit. You can see it grabbing onto the edge of the pan. So I'm gonna give it 10 minutes. I think it's going to go 35 minutes, and it's gonna get a nice dark color. You guys saw the other cake, which I'll show you right here. Nice and golden. This is what it's gonna look like. This is the one we're gonna fill. I'm gonna have a whisk, and I'm going to have a spatula. So in this recipe, we have milk. Remember what I said about adding the liquid first. I'm going to add the liquid first. So we want this off. We don't want it on until we've got everything going. And I'm going to add the flour off the heat with the whisk, and I'm going to make sure it does not get clumped. In goes the milk. Always use whole milk in the bake shop. And the burner is not on. I'm going to take this all-purpose flour, and I'm going to whisk this in a little bit at a time because I don't want lumps. Make sure there are no lumps on the edges before I turn the heat up. And let's see, what's an ear mark of this? So it's going to thicken up. We don't want it to get toasty or brown, and we certainly don't want to scorch it. Okay, so there are no chunks. Alright, so now I'm going to turn it on using the same principles I used on the last guy. I'm going to turn it down relatively low, and I'm going to keep this moving. And this time it's a smaller amount, so I'm going to use a smaller container, but I'm going to cover it to touch. And then we're going to use the ones that I already made in the refrigerator to make the buttercream. And then while the cake is finishing, I'm going to cover it and show you how we transport it and everything. So flour is going to cook at a lower temperature. You do not need to boil it. It's just going to start to thicken up. And again, we need the filling to stay together. We don't want it separating and having a bunch of water free-flowing inside the cake, getting it all soggy. But on the frosting, we are going to be adding the flour and milk to a creamed butter that's already stabilized a tiny bit. So it's just going to be amazing. So I don't want this boiling, so that's why I have the control. I can pull this off, or I can put it back on, but I don't want it to get away from me. And I just want to keep doing my figure eights, and I don't want to ignore the corners of the pan. That's where the heat lives and where I'll get things will thicken up, and then the other parts won't be cooked. We want a really even thickening, and I'm really going to keep an eye on it. And if you want, use a bain-marie and use the same principles, because you can overcook in a bain-marie as well. A bain-marie is not about having boiling water. That water should be under boiling. Your top pan should not be touching. It's thickening up already. You can see it on the spatula. So this has no flavor. There's no flavoring in here. Our flavor is going to come from our butter, more sugar, and the vanilla. And the thing about this cake is you have to remember, there's not one thing that tastes good all the time. These three things together, the filling, frosting, and the cake, it's the creaminess of the filling and the light, gentle sweetness of the frosting mixed together with the crunchiness of the poppy seed cake. All right, so this is thickening up nice, and it's going to continue to thicken in the refrigerator. I think we're very close. And then if you do this and you pulled it off too soon or it was too soft, even after it chilled in the refrigerator, you can do it, cook it a little longer. It does take a little bit of practice and it can be a little scary. You just don't want to burn it, scorch it, or we don't really want to turn it nutty. You would be removing too much of the moisture if you were doing that. And if we added fat, we would have a roux. So flour is often used for gravies and things like that. So we have three different kinds of things going on here. Our emulsions are all over the place, and that's why this is a really good cake for practicing a few foundational type skills. I'm gonna go a little bit longer. I had the heat off, which is fine. I want to see it get a little stretchier and stick just a ton, not stick, but on the bottom, like when you're doing pâte à choux, it'll start to leave a little bit of dryness behind. Even when I run my spatula through, I wish I could show you that. It's getting there. And this turns out really white. The more air you add to your buttercream butter, the whiter it turns. So this should stay neutral in color, which is nice. I'm going to be adding vanilla, and I don't mind the tinge whatsoever. Now you can do a lemon cream or something in the middle of this cake if you like lemon and poppy seed cake together. But this combination is just really good. All right, I'm seeing just a few bubbles. I want it to dry out just a tiny bit more. Babysit, babysit. Higher the heat, the more, delicate something is, the more you have to babysit it. So you want to stir this the entire time. And I'm not just stirring it, I'm scraping the bottom and the corners, because that's where my hot spots are going to hide. All right, I think we're good. Nice and shiny. So let me move this over here. That makes me feel good because now everything we do is just going to be fun. It's going to be great. We're going to move back to the paddle. All right. I'm going to pour this in here, and I want to cover this up as well. And then it's going to go in the refrigerator. And you can leave it in the refrigerator as long as you need to. So you could make this all on a Thursday and then put the cake together on a Friday and serve it on a Saturday if you want. You can parse out the parts. Now, you can't freeze the cornstarch filling because cornstarch doesn't like to be frozen. This will tolerate it a little more, but I would mostly not freeze these things. So you can't fill and freeze this cake. That will not work. All right. So there's no brown bits, just a little bit of flour kind of cooking and stuck to the bottom. I get my plastic, and my cake has a minute or so left. So we're getting good timing tonight. All right, so for me, I call this go time. I love it when, this is gonna go in the fridge, when things start to come together and it becomes just the fun parts. Okay, well, let me look at this and see. All right, I'm gonna let you guys look at it because it does look, in my opinion, very different. And we're gonna get the buttercream going. 25 seconds, but take a look. Look how nice it's getting. It's shiny, it's got bubbles, and it's just starting to get brown around the edges, but it's not really doming, so it's baking very nicely. So I'm going to add 5 minutes just so I can keep an eye on it. And then we're gonna get our buttercream going. Right now we're working on the poppy seed icing, white icing, and we're gonna mix it together right now. We're gonna see how magical this whole thing is. So I'm going to get my mixer. I'm gonna get a paddle and a mixer bowl, and we are going to put the cream, vanilla, and sugar all into this mixer, and we are going to paddle it. But remember, we're still going to apply the same principles of adding things a little bit at a time. I'm not just going to dump it all in together. So I'm going to start with the fat, which is the butter, and we are going to just start that on the paddle. and let it kind of get together, and then I will start adding the sugar, and it's just sucrose. There's no powdered sugar in this recipe. Put the paddle on here. So I wouldn't say this is a simple recipe, but it definitely requires that you keep track of the ingredients and the stage that you're at. So here is what we just made, icing of the date. And this is what it looks like when you take off the plastic. See that? It's cold and it's kind of gelatinized. Let me show you. It kind of comes away from, it's almost like Jell-O. See that? I don't want it to fall out. You can see it's pulling away from the edge. It has no odor. So the butter is very soft. I'm going to turn it up a little. I'm going to add a third. My butter is very soft. I don't need to torch my bowl because it's summer here and it's really warm. I love this icing, but mine tastes a bit gritty from the sugar. How can I fix it? Well, you want to go slow. Don't add a ton of air and let the sugar crystals dissolve a tiny bit into the butter. Because butter has quite a bit of water in it, and if you allow them just a little more time, so instead of going like this and being done, go really slow and give it twice as long. Naturally, those sugar particles are going to dissolve a little bit more. But you're right, this is going to have more grittiness than others. If you're using 10X, it's going to have a grittiness as well, but you want to use what liquids live in your ingredients to help dissolve some of that. You can also, and it's what confectioners do, you can take your sucrose and put it in a food processor or blender and grind it into smaller particles, or buy superfine sugar. That's going to dissolve it a little faster. It's going to dissolve at a little faster rate. So once we paddle this, I'm going to show it to you, and then I'm going to show you what happens when we add the cold flour paste. So when something gelatinizes, it's like gelatin. What that means is that it absorbs and holds the moisture. So when you look at this guy, when you look at this, see that? It's holding the moisture, and there's no moisture squeezing out, which is great. So that's a good job. That firmness means that that water that used to live in there is now locked into the cornstarch. It happens with Jell-O. You make Jell-O, they fill up and they hold the water, and then it becomes solid. So the same thing's happening. I'm going to add a little bit of this in thirds at a time, and we're going to have an ermine type / American buttercream. I think it's going to be lovely. Well, now we have to check on our cake. I'm actually going to let that just sit there. I'm going to take you guys with me so we can look. Okay, let's take a look. So what I'm looking for, they look nice and high, which I like, but they're not a color that's great yet. I want them to get nice and golden. And also a sign of doneness for a cake is they begin to pull away from the edge. Not a ton, because then you've overdone it, but just as, again, the edge, just as they become a little drier and begin to pull away. So also I'm noticing the cakes are shiny. So there's a lot of beautiful bubbles. There's a shininess, which means there's still moisture in there. So we aren't afraid of things turning brown. We want them to turn brown, but we also want that moisture to dissipate. If you don't, when it comes out, it will be soggy, and if you touch it, it'll leave an indentation. That's just it reabsorbing the moisture that at this point is trying to dissipate. So there is an edge between over baking a cake and you've released too much moisture and your cake is dry, and just that sweet spot where you've evaporated enough but you didn't leave it wet. So that's the sweet spot in the edge we want to get to. And I'm going to touch it. I just want to see what happens when I touch it. Yep. When you press on a cake that's not ready, it leaves an indentation. When you press on it and it pops back, even if it's slowly, I'm going to give it 5 minutes. I might regret that, but. All right, so now what I'm going to do is put this on low, and I'm going to add a third of this beautiful, shiny, look at that. It's even the shape of the thing. I'm going to add that, and I'm going to keep it on low until I see it disappearing, and then I'm going to add another. And the reason that it's not a big deal that this is cold, I might even do it in fourths, is because the butter is so soft and so warm. But I love that there's no moisture that's falling out. There we go. So then I'm gonna stop it. I'm not just gonna keep going because I just really want to assess what's going on in the bowl. And it feels thicker, which I like. Clean it up, I don't know. This is what it looks like. And actually there are a lot of vanilla beans in there because I used to have all my vanilla beans in my sucrose. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and give this a little bit of air. And I'm gonna taste it. Yeah, it's very gritty. So I'm gonna let it just go in there like that. And then I'm gonna add the nuts to our filling. I'm not gonna use a toothpick because there are other signs of doneness. But what you wanna look for is what I look for. I look for that sheen to be gone. I look for it to begin to pull away from the edges and to be a pretty color. And then if I want, as I'm pulling it out, before I make my final decision, I just touch it. If that little indentation stays, it doesn't pop back up even slowly, it's not ready to come out. So there's a lot of learning what the signs are. There's no timer that's gonna tell you a cake is done. And even a toothpick, like, if you used a toothpick, it would come out clean right now. It's virtually done, but you need to find the edge between it being just a little too much moisture and not enough. All right, let me get the filling out of the refrigerator and we're going to add the nuts to it. This is the filling, these are the nuts. So I'm looking at the cakes and they're still not the brown that I want them to be, so we're in good shape. So these are my nuts that I toasted and they are a little dark. And if I wanted to, and I think I do, I think they're too big. I almost feel like they should be chopped up a little bit more. And here are the ones I did today. They're a little less brown. So good. So if you toast them and they're warm and then you put them in here, they'll get soggy. Right now they're really crunchy. So when I add them to this, they're gonna lose their crunch just a tiny bit. But this is the filling. Let me see how thick it is. And this could probably go, it's pretty thin from today. Let me taste it. I know it's gonna taste good. But it's really thin. So what that tells me is, first of all, I could have cooked it a little bit longer, but also it could go overnight. So I'm gonna make a little bit of a dam with the frosting and fix that situation. All right. So we're gonna put a cake together. So I'm gonna take the nuts and I'm gonna put them into the cream. All right, let's go look at the cakes. I see the sides, and I'm gonna open the oven in a second, but I can see the sides pulling away and it's getting a little bit darker. I want them to go a little bit, oh nope, they're ready. I think those are good. See how the edges are pulling away? So I'm gonna pull these out of here. I'm gonna do it safely with 2 hands. You guys can watch me, and then we have the cakes I made today that we're gonna frost. These are going to sit on a cooling rack for about 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna turn them out right in front of you. All right, these look great. I'll show you what I see. Okay, do you see that beautiful golden color and how they're pulling away from the edge? And then if I were to touch it, see how it springs back? That's what you're looking for. That means they're dry. So you can see how this guy is really pulling away from the edge. So I have them on a rack, just like a cooling rack. They're gonna sit there for 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna turn them out to cool the rest of the way, and we are going to put these cakes together. So this is how fluffy the frosting is. Very light and frosty. And the thing about this icing is it's pipeable, so you should be able to get a little bit of a border or something like that. So it's quite soft and aerated and nice. So we're gonna use that as our icing. So I actually want to taste that and see if some of the grittiness went away, because I agree. I'm gonna show you how we transport. I'm gonna get rid of this guy because it does have the grains in it. And I'm gonna use a different one. I wanna see if some of the grit went away. You can also let it sit at room temperature and let that moisture transition. It's really not gritty at all. I think it's amazing. Okay, here's what I do when I transport a cake. This is an 8-inch cake on a 10-inch stand. But what I do is I make the top the bottom, and then this goes over the top. Because when you transport food, it should be covered. So I can even do a cake stand, because once I get the cake on here, then you do that, it actually holds it all in place so it doesn't tip over. So if you place this onto the floor of your car, into the back on a flat spot, it's pretty sturdy. I'm gonna take my cakes out of their pans very quickly, and I'm gonna use gloves to do that. All right, here's what we're gonna do. Watch me work, because this is gonna go fast, but it's really important. These are our cakes. These need to come out before that moisture gets reintegrated. So here's how I do it. I'm gonna show you how easily these come out with just that little parchment, but here's how I do it. I tap it, pull it, I take that parchment right off, and then I put this on here and I flip it over. Okay, I'm gonna do it again. We want to preserve the cake without it cracking. And we want to take this guy off. Look at that beautiful color, you guys. Ooh, it's warm. Ooh, it's gonna break. Okay, so boom. All right, there we go. These are my 2 cakes. Gorgy gorge. Wait till you see this thing sliced. So I'm gonna put these over here. Cakes. So I'm gonna stir my nuts into here. This is gonna go here. So I'm gonna take a little bit of our frosting. Look at it, it's beautiful. Put it right here. And then I'm going to take my poppy seed cake I baked this afternoon. I didn't bake it until like 1 p.m. and I waited till it was 100% cool, and then I wrapped it, not warm. So this is gonna be right in the center, and I'm going to make sure that it's flat. I am going to make a little bit of a dam. A dam prevents anything too soft from leaving the premises. If I want, I can take the buttercream and put it onto the cake in a really thin skim coat, and that will help it to not enter the pores of the cake. I'm gonna cut a little bit off the tip of my bag. I don't want to get that plastic in the food. Make sure it's in the garbage. I'm gonna take a little bit of frosting, not enough to make it like thick, but enough, and I'm going to push it into the pores of the cake, because when I add that custard, the filling, I don't want it to make the cake soggy. And I want to think about how it's going to look when I cut into the cake. So I want to make sure it's neat and it's all the same thickness. And normally I would maybe, if I were decorating a cake, I would cut off the top, but this has like a little crunchy edge. I actually like that. So now I'm going to take my pastry bag and make a bit of a dam. This is going to go in the refrigerator, so all of the butter and everything will continue to solidify. I don't think this is going to be big enough, but one way you can tell is to take your bowl and pipe a little, and that's not a big enough dam. I want it to be a little bit bigger. And I think people use this too much, and when you cut the cake, it's ugly. So you want this to be very neat and just enough to keep the custard in. And we're not going to use all the custard. And if I wanted to, I could cut the cake and tort it. So this is 2. Torting it is cutting it this way, but I'm just going to leave it this way. So here is what this looks like. It has a little bit of a dam. See, it's not gigantic. It's just enough to keep the custard in. Clean up the board, clean paper towel. All right, so then I'm going to take the custard. So I don't want this to overflow. So what you want to do is just take your time, make sure you have just enough, because you want the frosting to support the cake. You don't want this smushing down. I'm going to crumb coat it and put it in the fridge. So here's my next cake, and I'm going to put the bottom on the top. Isn't that pretty? Look how many poppy seeds. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to place it down, and I'm going to make sure that it's straight, and then I am going to give it a quick frost. And I don't want to smash it because I know I have that delicate filling, and I want to get the edges filled in for support. The butter is going to firm up even though it's warm. It's going to do its job. And I am going in one direction, and these are just basic skills for covering a cake, nothing fancy. But you want to go back and forth and fill every air gap, because that is a crumb coat. It's really for sealing in the moisture and not leaving a hole where the air can go back and forth, because that's how cakes dry out. And if you're making this cake, you saw how I had it wrapped. If you aren't going to frost it until tomorrow, so you have two options. You can either crumb coat it as soon as it's cold, or you can wrap it and leave it on the countertop in plastic overnight. But if you leave it just on the countertop without any icing or any plastic, it's going to dry out. Just that's what it's going to do. Now normally I would put this in the refrigerator and get a crumb coat, but we are going to be cutting this, and it's going to be a little soft and messy because of nothing's had a chance to solidify, but I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm going to give it a final coat like now, which again I would never do. Just want to make it look homemade but done. Put a quick order on it. Yeah, so one of the reasons you don't want to over aerate it, and I basically did, is because you create all these air holes and it doesn't look nice. Again, not a big deal, just like a little refinement. So if you wonder why it's so rough, that's why it's rough. And you know, putting a crumb cake on and then putting it in the refrigerator and then giving it its final coat is so much easier. If you want, you can give this a crumb coat, and then you can take just a bag and do a bunch of over piping and make it look kind of fun. And you don't have to be like super talented. You can just pipe whatever you want and have it be old-fashioned and fun. People have been doing homemade decorated cakes for a long time, and they don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to feel like everything you do is perfect. It doesn't need to be. This is going to taste great. I'm going to show you how nice it looks cut. All right, so then this, you put it over the edge just a little, clean off the knife, and then go around, clean it up. It's dragging. We don't want to do. It's not a cake decorating class. Right. Let's see. And then I have enough frosting here to do like a little finishing border. And it is surprising. And you could take non-Perels and things and make it kind of fun and finish it. Put this off to the side, and I'll take just a plastic bag with not even a tip, and we'll make it look a little bit better. Now I was hoping to have some chamomile and some edible flowers, but they're just not growing this year. We've had the weirdest growing season. Just an easy little border, nothing fancy. You don't need any fancy equipment. And then when this goes in the refrigerator, it's going to get firm. If I wanted to find some edible flowers, it'd be really pretty. It's summertime. Just make sure they're not sprayed with pesticides, or people aren't allergic. There are a lot of flowers people are allergic to. I think I'm gonna run out. Nope. There we go. Put this back over here. So you can see that it's a mess. But it's a homemade mess, and it's going to taste great. And I am going to cut a slice so you guys can see it. Cut one just for myself, or one for Dave as well. Slice. I'll show you the inside. You know what, it tastes almost like a cereal. It tastes like a yummy, not cinnamon toast crunch, but something like that. It's very good. So here is what it looks like. It's running. And so what I'm going to do is take this plastic, and I'm going to put it in here to touch, cover up the cake part, and then this way it won't dry out, and it's going to go in the refrigerator right now, and then I'll show you the piece that I cut. So this has got to go in the fridge to firm up. This is the guy we made, that's already firm, which is amazing. And then let's see, this might even be thicker than the one we just made. Yeah, sometimes when I make things for the first time in a long time, they're not as good as even the second time. Oh my gosh, look at this. This is the one we made, and look how much thicker it is. So sometimes making things, and it's still warm, it's not even cold. So that Live and learn, live and learn, live and learn, people. So yeah, the first one was too thin. It happens. I'm gonna take off my gloves. I'm gonna eat some cake and I'm gonna show it to you. Woohoo! Okay, here it is. There's the bottom, golden beautiful, icing, and the filling. Tender. It's earthy because of the high quantity of poppy seeds. But it's good. Oh my gosh. I like the toasted nuts. The recipe does not call for it, but if you're into it, I'm into it. Look how soft it is. It's really soft. I mean, this is what baking's supposed to be. Dave, they want you to taste it. It's not Dave's birthday. It's his birthday cake. It's like the one he asked for his birthday. So it's the special cake. He's going to be excited, though, that he gets to eat some. Trust me. Here's a cake. Look how beautiful up close. Absolutely beautiful. If you like poppy seed, and if you have any grandmas in your life or anybody, grandpas, anybody older who is from any country in Europe, and you give them some, they're just gonna have a memory. They're gonna have a memory. So here's how tender it is with a fork. Goes right through. Tender, but with AP flour. Creamy. I mean, it's lovely. Dave, are you gonna come eat?
Do you have a slice for me?
Yeah, you want to stand out there and eat? I'll just flip the camera.
Whatever you want.
Well, I'm not going to cut a new one.
Oh, okay.
So I'm flipping it. They're going to be able to see you. There he is. There's Dave. You can finish my piece, but I'm happy to get you more. Here you go.
No, that's perfect.
Woo! Go back over there. So this is Dave, my husband.
It's got so many poppy seeds in it.
It does.
Compared to like a lemon poppy seed.
And Lou's here too. Hi, Lou. Did you miss me? I know Dave wants a full piece. Do you want a full piece, babe, or what do you want to do?
This is enough. I'll have some in the morning when it's
Okay.
like been in the fridge with some
We
coffee.
love eating stuff like this first thing in the morning. Is he allowed inside? Yeah, he is. He can come stand by me. It's
I always
just
wait for permission.
we can move this over here. Got the whole
It's
family.
like a lot of your best cakes.
Here,
They're
you can
so
talk.
good,
Sit down.
but they're like
Have a seat. You want to say hi, Lou?
they're so good in the morning when they've been in the refrigerator overnight, because then it's like firm, and then you've got like hot coffee.
Yeah, we really do like it after it's been in the refrigerator. It firms up. It's really nice. Come here, Lou.
But it's so
You wanna
good.
come
It's
say
such
hi?
a different,
Come
such a
here.
unique flavor with all the
Come here.
macadamia.
And here's Lou. Lou.
And it's literally like 3 times as much poppy seed as any other cake.
Lou, he
that
wants
has
some
poppy
cake.
seeds.
He's wagging his tail.
It's an old
He's
friend.
always- It is an old friend. You sure you don't want more? No, but it is nice when it solidifies a little bit. You can keep sitting.
No, you can sit. I'll stand.
However, the butter and the frosting and everything,
It's like birthday in July.
it's like you want it in between. Yeah, Lou's so cute. Come here, Lou. Come here, cutie. He's so cutie. He's got the
Lou hasn't had
longest
dinner.
legs. And I wanted a lap dog, but then when I adopted him, he was 10 months old, and
Lou doesn't get cake.
he put on weight and got bigger, and he has super long legs. He's like daddy long legs. Lou, can you say hi to everybody?
He thought he was going to have dinner, so
Oh, he hasn't had dinner. Lou, say hello.
the whole family's
You're
there.
so cute. Yes, you're a good boy.
This might not make it to work. Well, it's a big cake.
It's a whole. I
It's a
have
big
2
cake.
cakes.
I appreciate
And-
bacon and eggs. Asked several times if I was going to get a piece. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
You were looking out for Dave.
You guys are always looking out for me. The granola is going to be.
Granola
like,
is
it is not
epic.
going to go to work. That's like
David,
8
it's a
days
big.
of breakfast and well, you make this
Really? You
close.
want? Yeah.
Very good.
So I hope you guys took away what you need from this recipe. You know, things go wrong, things go right, and I learn, and I'm so glad that I got to make it and share something that in our family is so special. This was really hard. If you want some notes, go to the Substack. There are some good notes there that will tell you kind of how this thing works and why. All right, everybody, happy baking. All right, let's do a dance sign off. Good idea. Dave, you want to dance? We suckered him in. Next. Oh, here's a good one. All right, you can watch us
You
clean.
wanna come?
Dance and clean. Thank you. I had a great time. We're just gonna pick up a little and then go walk through. All right, you guys have a good night. Take care.